There we go. Now I can see it. Okay. I ended up I ended up having to do a full reboot of the whole system and reload every program, the whole 9 yards. So to make sure ZBrush was working, I went ahead and imported the body of the first Orc Archer. Bing! An Orc Archer. Yay. So I also need to go ahead and append another object, this time his scoit. Oh yeah, also need to turn on edit, because those need to end up being fused together. And then I need to append another object to be his props. There. This is the basics for the Orc Archer. Now the thing is, I need to go ahead and subdivide these a couple times. Yeah, that's close enough. And then the body. Okay, and then merge down. And now back to one more subdivision, delete lower, and now we're going to dynamesh it. And the reason we're dynameshing is the polygon flow for these models changes. We also need to fuse the areas where the skirt and the body are. I mean, if I hit this, if I zoom in, you can see that the polygons are kind of small over here, but when we go to the back, they get a lot larger over here. Dynamesh helps cure that. We're going to make it 768, blur of 0, Dynamesh! Bum bum bum! That's like a superhero from the 1880s, or from the 1980s. And now we're going to turn off that. And the first thing we're going to do, now that we got our basic geometry here, is we're going to erase, so to speak, with my trusty Wacom. We're going to erase the seams between the body and the skirt. So, first things first, do the basic erasing. We're going to have to do a little bit more work on this butt because it's sticking out a bit. And the concept is that this guy's not actually wearing a skirt. He's wearing, well, basically a tunic or a coat of some kind, maybe a coat of mail. I'll decide while I'm sculpting him. That. While we're here, let's go ahead and smooth out some other areas that get a little bit warped under posing. And yes, I'm back, and front, and diagonal. Now, what we're going to do here, once again, I hit stroke and bring it over. No, I said I hit stroke and bring it over. Thank you. And I go to lazy mouse, turn off lazy mouse, bring that add low. Okay. And yeah, let's see. How many people I got in here right now? Well, I only see me when I hit the @ sign, which means I've got at least one viewer, but, you know. And I'm just going to go ahead and swell up around the edges of where the butt is, because we need to kind of make this. And then I smooth it. And that's still not enough. I need to go ahead and make the mouse smaller, because when you make the mouse smaller when using a smooth in ZBrush, well, I've said it before, the fewer polygons that ZBrush is calculating with each stroke for a smooth operation, the more smoothing it does. Alright, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to invert the selection so that now that's what's selected. I'm going to go to deformation and give it 100% polish. Okay. That didn't do anything. So let's go to masking. Let's blur mask a couple times. Now go to deformation. Let's go to smooth 100%. Oh, still not doing it. Polish 100. Okay. Well, I'll go back to this later. I also need to smooth out down here. But at the same time, let's try polish. See sub. Make sure it's not on the it's not. Okay, error. Slash add, not so much, turn off lazy mouse. And we're gonna sharpen this bottom edge and then give it just a little bit of smoothing to blend it in with the rest of the edge. Okay, this is our basic orky boy. Now, one thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and hide his head, brows, jaw, and then the hands. Okay. Oh, I see what happened there. Okay, yeah, the hand blended in. Alright. I'm going to just be very careful about this. I'm going to mask off here. And here. This is what is going to become our sleeves for the tunic he's wearing. Now it, okay, and then zoom around here. Let's blend it in with that one. Whoop. And then we're going to add in the neckline, which is going to go from here around the back and around the front. Now, I'll tell you right now, this guy is going to not be wearing chainmail, because it would just be too annoying to have to deal with trying to sculpt mail around those the hand that has become fused with the body. Okay. Now, frame out. Actually, let's go ahead and, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and clean this up a little bit around here. And around here. These aren't going to be the sleeves, these are going to be the, I'm going to go ahead and give it a bit here. What this is going to be, this is going to be the trim on the edges of the sleeve and the edges of the bottom of the tunic. And what I gotta do, be very careful about, is I'm gonna have to make sure I make it as close to even as possible, and at the same time make sure I come back in just a little bit and get the underside again to make sure that it comes out even. So what has everyone been up to today? Because I've been dealing with a bit of back pain lately. That's why my Sunday show was pretty lackluster. Yeah, seems that I had a little nasty little argument between one of the muscles of the small of my back and a slightly bulging disc, with the end result that the bulging disc threw a tantrum and decided to grab onto my sciatic nerve and not let go. Yay. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Okay, I need to clear off that back side of here. Okay, now frame. And that's going to obviously be the trim. So we're now going to go to Subtool, and we're going to extract. 0.03 thick. Extract. Accept. Draw that. And then come up here and I draw that so that it gets rid of any lingering masking. Now we're going to Dynamesh this straight as it is and just subdivide it a couple times. Now there's no further detail that's going to be needed on these because that's just your trim on the edge of your tunic. But on this guy, we're going to need to do something about that chest, because that chest is way too detailed. Yeah, it sucks, and it's something that happens when you get older. You see, the problem when you get older isn't that it hurts. The problem is that when you do get hurt, it takes longer to heal. I'll bring this up a little. Like I said, I'm trying to fill in the gap because the cloth doesn't follow the full underside here. And this may be a rank and file trooper, but you need to treat, if you're going to be sculpting miniatures like this, you need to treat every figure like it was a hero. Because, once you've got it sculpted, you can print an infinite number as long as you've got enough plastic for you. You don't need to be sitting there and treating your lower tier with like they're garbage, because you still need them to fill out your army. And if your whole army looks pretty badass, you may not want them to have all of the equipment or all of the detailing, but you want to have the same consistent level of attention to basic shapes and details. In this case, cloth doesn't stick to your pecs. Okay, I'm going to do another thing of cloth, for the clothes rather, but this one's going to be relatively simple. I'm going to tilt them back just a little bit. I'm going to make the cuffs for his boots. And we're going to extract them. Accept. Draw. We're going to go back to him. We're going to draw to make sure that we don't have any remaining masking for the next time we do something like this, which will be actually pretty soon. Now we go to the geometry. We're going to dynamesh it at 256 because we want to keep a bit more of a sharpness to the top and bottom. We're going to divide it once. Delete lower. Frame. Frame once pulls the whole figure into frame. Frame twice. Now it's just these guys. Now what we're going to do, we're going to make the mouse bigger. Go to Move Topological. Move Topological means if these two were right next to each other, I grabbed this one and dragged, it would not affect this one because there's no geometry in common. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go basically drag these out so that they hang more like the cuffs of a boot. I mean, think Captain America's boot. You know how it's wider at the bottom of the cuff than it is at the top. That's what we're trying to do here. I mean, yeah, we're making miniatures. We still have to know basics on how does cloth fold? How do muscles interact with each other? What's the basic anatomy on proportions? Now, I've said it on previous posts, on previous broadcasts. Proportions still matter. A miniature may have a larger head in proportion and bigger hands, but they still have the same, it's in relation. You still got to know basic anatomy. Okay, we're going to come back to these. It's now pretty obvious that they're boot cuffs. What we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and add on what's known as hobnail tops. Basically, the boots are going to get a layer. And I have a cat that wants to be picked up and set over here. Anyway, this is going to basically be the toe cop for the boots. Oh yeah, I gotta select the orc, not his boots. Okay. Now this one we're not going to extract out quite as much as we have the previous. We're going to extract it out 0.02. And this represents metal. Attach. Or accept rather. Draw that. And again we go back to our body and we draw again to get rid of any. Extraction basically takes the areas that you've got masked and duplicates it, then extrudes it in both directions. Now, because of that, this means that it's literally, I'm going to frame until they're in, yeah, it's literally one polygon deep, as you can see here. Let me shrink the mouse so it's easier to see where I'm, as you can see here, it's only one polygon deep. That's not good, because that can cause all sorts of weirdness. So we go to Dynamesh, and again, we want to keep a little bit of sharpness, so we're going to go to 256 resolution, Dynamesh. Oh, we lost a lot of sharpness there. We want to keep more sharpness than that. So we're going to go to... Actually, we're going to go to Z-Remesher instead. Adaptive size 100. Z-Remesh. Man, it's going to take a second. Okay, that's too many. That's not quite what I'm looking for. Now let's go back to Dynamesh, but we're going to do it at... Alright, 384. In case you're wondering, that's multiples of the powers of 2. Yeah, that's good. That keeps enough sharpness for us. Turn off polyframe. And we're going to divide it once. We're going to frame them in. The next thing we're going to do is we're going back to standard. And we're going to increase the intensity a bit. And we're going to make bolts on this. So we're going to focal shift down a bit. And since bolts are an even size, we're going to be using the mouse instead of the stylus. Okay, not large, not deep enough. So let's go to 36. That's pretty good. No, it's not. It needs to be bigger because I keep forgetting. I have a tendency to not do details large enough. Let's do 60. That will look right when it's printed, no matter whether it's FDM or resin. See, the thing is that a lot of details don't look right if you do them regular size on a printed, well, not even on a printed, on a 28mm miniature in general. I mean, if you go get a Games Workshop figure and you go look and you measure the height of his head, you count how many heads high. He's probably about 4 or 5 heads high, maybe 6 in some of the more recent figures. Because anything closer to human proportion and the head's not large enough to paint, it's hard to see where it is. Where the details on the head are. The eyes become virtually invisible. So details actually have to be larger on a miniature than on reality. Okay, hobnail boots. Alright. Now, the next thing is, we're not really going to need to do anything to the props. The props are all good as they are. Well, we might want to do something on the quiver, but yeah. So we're going to go ahead and save those for last. We're going to hide everything that's not on the base figure. I said we're going to hide everything. There we go. We're going to make sure we got everything unselected. Now we're going to go ahead and start doing two things. One, we need to inflate the inside of the right hand. We need to make it mostly solid, because this is going to have a problem when it comes time for printing. It's going to be an unusual weird angle. We want to get rid of that unusual weird angle, so we use the inflate brush and we inflate until it seals off against itself and the chest. Come in here and what this is going to do, this is going to make it, basically solid. Oh, that last one was bad. Yeah, I need to go make sure I'm going on the inside for this. This thumb will be tough to print as it is, but when it does print well, it will be so satisfying. Now let's go ahead and inflate everything back here together, because it's never going to be seen, and it's just going to be wasting printer time as it goes. Now I frame out. I need to go inside that left thumb a little. So I'm going to zoom in on it. Shrink the mouse. This is not so much to fill in gaps as much as to make the thumb look proportionate. Because the gap here is filled by the bow. Now we can go ahead, let's go ahead and finish the hands before we get to making the wrinkles on the tunic. Zoom in on the hand. We're going to take inflate. We're going to shrink the brush until it's about the size of the fingers. Yeah. Then we're going to make sure that we have, lazy mouse is off. We're going to draw on large knuckles. And something to keep in mind is that the middle finger is the longest and the pinky is the smallest, but the ring and the index are almost always the same length. And then we're going to smooth out the tail ends of these little tendons we just drew on. Now, we know that the last knuckles are going to be over here. So we're going to go ahead and draw those on. This is kind of backwards from where I normally do them, but that's because this is an unusually placed hand. Alright, now that we have those knuckles drawn on, it just looks like they're drawn on. So we're going to smooth them out between the knuckles. And then between these knuckles. This will also help flatten out the faces of the fingers. Make them look more like fingers and less like a rounded off mitten. Okay. Now we're going to use the slash. This time we're going to go into sub, and we're going to double deep the split between the fingers. We want these fingers again to look like fingers and not like a mitten. Now if I zoom out, you can already tell, well, I need to smooth out the backs of these knuckles just a bit. But yeah, you can already tell that the right hand looks more like a hand than the left. We also need to kind of go ahead, well, I'll do that after I do the fingers on this hand. But we're going to do, there's a lot of people will have a bit of a bony structure on either side of their wrist, here and here. This one's slightly higher than this one. I used to have more of that bony structure, but I put on weight. Anyway, these orcs are going to be raw bones, so they're going to have a bit larger of a bony structure there. So let's go back to inflate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and draw on the tendons on the back of the hand. The thing about these tendons, you may not be able to see them even when they get printed on a resin printer, but they will help give the proper shape and form to the back of the hand, even if the detail isn't there. It's difficult to explain, but yes, you can see details that don't actually print because you see the effect they have on the shapes around them. And then knuckle here, 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 and here. And then I smooth out the flats of the fingers, so to speak. Let's call them the flats of the fingers for now. That's not what they are, but it's the actual lengths of bone between the joints. And this helps, helps make them look like fingers bending in 3 places instead of sausages that were wrapped around a bow. And yes, doing this occasionally does smooth out the gaps between the fingers, which is one of the reasons we go over it again with the slash. But before I go over these fingers with the slash, what I'm going to do is I'm going to up the size of the mouse a couple times, and I'm going to draw on the joints for the thumb. And then the bony landmarks here. I'm going to draw them on and then smooth them out because while there may be bony landmarks, there is still a layer of skin and or fat over them. So by smoothing them out, it shows how they're, basically padded, I guess you could say. Actually, that one didn't come out right because it was on the wrong side of the hand. There. And now I have another cat that needs transportation. Say hello to Ralph. Come on down, little buddy. You know I'm not going to drop you. Yeah, good boy. So, let me move him back over because as you see, ZBrush rotates around where you last worked. So, as you work, it eventually shifts over to one side or the other. I'm also going to go ahead, and again, this is something that may not even be seen on resin printers. I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of fat to the bottom of the thumb. But what this does is this helps give our shape to the hand that the detail may not be there, but the shape carries over better. And then I'm going to draw in the 2 tendons right here and blend them out. And now the hands look like hands. Even on your basic line troops, you want to remember that. I have forgotten it a couple of times on my broadcasts. I've forgotten to do the hands. Often when I was not at my best in terms of like I hurt or I was in a bit of a rush for some other reason. But even for these little quick guys, I cannot forget the basic shapes. I mean, yeah, he's eventually going to be basically just wearing a tunic with a bow. That's all he's going to be. But I've got to make sure he's done right. It includes smoothing down under the underarm. Okay, frame out. Those hands look a lot better. Now let's make the face look a lot better. One of the ways we're going to do this is we're going to make sure that the eyes are very distinct even when we go back and re-dynamesh, and that's why we're going to dig a deeper hole. See, there was a moderately deep hole or trench around the eyes, but when we did our first dynamesh, it filled it in. It blended it in, which is something we don't want. Because while the first time wasn't that bad, the second time that it happens later on, it will become almost unreadable as eyes, and it'll be just a blank smooth spot. We don't want that. We want eyes. And after we dig in this trench, I mean, we can deal with the trench between the nose and the brows not being quite so deep, because that's more of a suggestion of a wrinkle. Now, I'm going to take the Move Topological brush, and I'm going to make it a bit bigger. I'm going to draw up the eye here. It's like Hawkeye, with a wider open eye here, and a brow raised. And again, you've got to exaggerate it. You've got to go far beyond what you think the level of detail needs to be for it to read. I mean, I zoom out to the full frame, and it's pretty clear that the one eye is wider open. But when I zoom out to, oh, that's how it looks when it's printed, it's not quite as clear. It's harder to see. But you see those hands still read as hands. As long as it reads like it is. So what we're going to do, we're going to raise that brow a little bit more. I'm going to make the brow, the brush, a bit bigger. And then raise these. And now make it a little bit smaller and raise this cheek up, because it's a wincing eye. Fuzzbutt, no. Get across. Yeah. I know you saw the tail. What did you just knock over? Yep. So anyway, that's how I threaten them. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more detail to the mouth. I'm going to use the inflate brush and make his lower lip a little bit larger. Around where the teeth are. To kind of emphasize the gap of the teeth. And do a little bit underneath. This will give them a little bit of a wrinkle under the teeth to imply that even the root is a little bit far forward. And hold on just a second. Can't do this, Mom! Got me! Sorry about that. I'd like to apologize about that. There's an issue with my mother and the medicine she's taking. She's 70 years old, and she's having problems with her medicines. Oh, that was so embarrassing. I can't believe I did that. Okay, so, anyway. Getting back to this guy, we're going to add a little bit of detail. Getting back to this guy, to his upper lip now, we're going to use the slash brush and draw in just a couple slashes, a couple wrinkles. Some of these might not be deep. We're going to deepen that one. Some of these might not be large enough to be visible from a FDM printer, but they probably will be from a resin printer. We're also going to, actually we need to make it bigger for this. We're going to emphasize the structure of the ear. Again, this is mostly for resin printers and not so much the FDM. Okay, let's smooth this out. Okay, let's frame out. Okay, so we got him. He's looking a lot meaner now, and not quite as bored. And now we got to add the wrinkles to the tunic. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to make these go bye-bye, but we're going to make the trim visible. Then we're going to a standard brush. We're going to make it not quite so strong as we currently have it. Wow. And we're going to make it larger. Okay, so with wrinkles, there's three primary types. There's hundreds of types if you really want to get technical, based on angle and torsion and forces and all sorts of weird stuff like that. But the three major categories that we are concerned with at this scale are wrinkles created by compression, wrinkles created by torsion, and wrinkles created by draping. Compression. Wrinkles here in my underarm. It's being compressed there. There'd be similar wrinkles if I was wearing a belt and tucked my shirt in under my belt. And then draping wrinkles are from when it just hangs. You notice that the draping wrinkles aren't as intense as the ones up here. So we're going to take the focal shift back to 0, and we're going to draw on from over the shoulder. We're going to draw on a couple wrinkles coming this way. Oh, no, that went the wrong way. First things first, we need to bring this in a little. Bring it down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to smooth the top of the wrinkle, but not the bottom, and the end of the wrinkle. The reason for this is wrinkles are subject to gravity. And then we're going to draw in one from under here. And we're going to smooth out both sides of this one. Now we're going to go to to slash. We want to add, and we're going to draw across the bottom edge of the wrinkle. Okay, that's too sharp. We don't need it that high. The reason we're drawing across the bottom edge of the wrinkle is Cloth does not fold in a curve. It folds in a line. And as such, you want a sharp edge on these folds. Usually on the side facing gravity. Let's go ahead and smooth that. And then the other reason is because when it comes time to paint, this is what's going to grab the dry brush. This is what's going to rise up out of the wash. The other thing to note is that wrinkles zigzag. I'm drawing a couple extra wrinkles here that I shouldn't be doing. I need to be doing them with the standard brush first. And this is from the gravity hand combined with the tension of the legs. I'm going to try to bring up the top of this a little and smooth it all out up here. Let's smooth that out. And you always smooth out the end of the wrinkle, because wrinkles fade away. Now go back to slash, and I slash the bottom of these wrinkles with a positive amount, again to sharpen them. And I just realized I screwed up. I'll solve it in a minute though. I forgot to give them a belt, which is another source of wrinkles. So we're going to go to our props just so that we can append a new poly mesh. And this one will also be based on his body. We're going to hide the actual one based on his body. And we're going to smooth out the little wrinkles in the belly right there. We're going to subdivide them quite a bit. Delete. Zoom in. We're going to draw on a section that's going to end up being extracted for use as the belt. And then we're going to remove this spare version of our buddy. 0.03. Extract, accept, draw, select this one, and delete. Okay, we went on. Now we're going to hide the things. Let's bring this up a bit. Okay, now one thing we got to do is, because of where this belt is, we're going to have to reduce some of these wrinkles a lot. And then smooth it out. And then we're going to show you what tension wrinkles are. It's going to be pretty good, yeah. It's about right, yeah. We're going to have to start this wrinkle over again, and this wrinkle over again. And then now on the back, there's a little bit there and a little bit there. Then we're going to draw up from here. And back up this way. And smooth off the ends of all these wrinkles once we're done. And then one that goes up to the arm. Smooth off the tops of all these wrinkles. Now the thing about torsion wrinkles is they don't just have a wrinkle and a ridge. They have a dip. It's like a wrinkle comes down and back out. And then we're gonna follow the butt here. So the problems that we were having with the butt, it's getting turned into assistance with the wrinkles. Okay, now we go to slash, no, not polish, slash. We're going to start off with the subtraction brush instead of the addition. And let's shrink it a couple times. And we want to make it go deep, so we go down to 13. Go in. We're going to dig into each of these tension wrinkles with this. And we got that same problem again of ZBrush wanting to follow where your brush is as the center, meaning that the figure starts moving over to the side. Now this is more work than I wanted to do on this particular figure, but I'd rather go ahead and do a little bit of extra work on a minor figure and get it looking good than forget to do basic stuff on a major figure and end up looking garbage. Okay, you might be able to hear my cat or one of my cats jingling his bell collar as he's scratching. And then what we're going to do after this, before we add on the sharpness, is we're going to go back and hit them all just a bit of smooth. Just to make sure that it's actually caught by the printers, because it might be too sharp to really catch. Now there. Like I said, one of the things to keep in mind when you're doing something like this is that a lot of details you don't necessarily need to detail, but if you've got it present, the form change that it has in the shape of what you're working on will be enough to imply that detail even if it doesn't get printed. So then we go back to add, we go back down to 8, and then we're just going to loop around each of these. Kind of around the outside and near the bottom. Again, this is so that it catches the dry brush, sticks out of the wash, or whatever shading method you're using. Since 99% of people use dry brushes and washes, those are the two that we're going to be worried about. And on back over here. Yeah, there we go. We're going to move this up. We're going to draw that. And we're going to draw that. And then we're going to draw that. Whee! Whee! You see, the grandmasters of sculpture back in the days of, you know, the great Roman and Greek sculptures weren't the ones that had the best knack for human anatomy. They were the ones who had the best knack for the draperies. If you go look at the Pieta for the Renaissance era, as opposed to the Greeks, you will see cloth folds that beggar the imagination, that make modern artists weep with despair for ever capturing folds like those. You know, if you go and look at the works of Leonardo da Vinci, his paintings, all that cloth, and he's masterfully captured how it hangs, how it drapes, how it folds. Because your bicep will always be in the, you know, on your upper arm in a specific location, and it may change size based on how you bent it. It will always be where it always is. Let's go ahead and turn on things here. Alright, the weapons, we're going to go ahead and subdivide them, because we want everything to end up being as close to the same resolution as everything else. And this is what we got right now. Okay. A light. For the most part, this is good, but we still need to detail the boots, and we need to give something to that. But yeah, he's already looking pretty darn good. Alright, let's go ahead and go to the boot cuffs. Okay. Now, pardon me while I get some soda. By giving him a tunic, this also sets a precedence that the other archer will also probably be a bit lighter armored. You know, if anything, he might also have a tunic. Alright, we're going to standard. And what we're going to do is we're going to take what basically how these things would be. It's with a bit of a zigzag. Come on. And we're going to kind of exaggerate it. And duplicate it on both sides. And add in something on the back and the front. Mm-hmm. And then what we're going to do, just like we did with the wrinkles on the tunic, we're going to sharpen the bottom edge. Now these are probably leather, you know, which means they're actually going to have a smoother wrinkle system. But we're going to go ahead and make that smoother wrinkle system still, the inside of the wrinkles are going to be smoother because of what I'm doing right now. But we're going to make the edges sharper because, again, it catches paint better. It makes it more obvious when you're painting it that that's what happened, that those wrinkles are there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to slash and gently slash the underside of all of these wrinkles to make it obvious. And to give it a nice edge, a sharp essence. You want to try and get it near not all the way on the bottom, but kind of near the bottom, but on the top of the wrinkle, or on the protuberance of the wrinkle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit it with a relaxation. Yes, we're going to let it relax a bit and then go back over the sharp edges. Because right now it's a bit too extreme. Again, it's something that it's going to be a detail that doesn't really actually carry over, but when we see it, it's the impression is there. Art history, don't you love it? Okay, now going to deformation. There is smooth. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. Okay, that's not doing it fast enough. Well, we'll just go ahead and Dynamesh it again. And then we'll go in and smooth it. Okay. Now it doesn't look like much. I did much, but trust me, there's a lot. It's a lot smoother now. Divide and delete lower, and then let's go ahead. Let's make this a little bit sharp, a little bit stronger, and a little bit larger. And we're going to lightly redraw those sharp lines. Oh, that's too strong. Yeah. No, again, it's too strong. Okay, there we go. Giving it a ridge to catch the paint. And do the same thing down here on this side. That's good. Yeah. Okay, so really and truly, there's not much else we can do to this guy. This particular archer is done. So we go back up to subtools. Come on. There we go. I'm going to select the main one, and we're going to merge down repeatedly until it's all one piece. And here we go. And the last thing to do for him, we need to append one more subtool. And that's going to be the base. So we import from the miniatures default base. Frame. Now let's go ahead and divide it a couple times because it does need it. Delete lower. And we're going to be lowering it first. We need to move it in position. So we're going to, whoop. Now we're going to offset it in the Y. There. And we'll see it's too far forward. Zoom out. We need to offset it in the Z. And there. Still, that's too. Frame. And this is the final archer figure. Looks a lot better than when it was just the basic geometry. So we're going to go ahead and fuse this one down, merge down. And now we're going to Dynamesh it at the 768 like we did before. It goes from 1.813 million to 1.754 million, which means not a huge change, but you'll notice things like the various parts have fused together. Single solid pieces. It's one manifold surface now. This is when those eyes, it's a good thing that we dug them deep to make them obvious. Now we frame out and we can see that neck trim and the belt. We zoom out far so it looks like a miniature, and we can see things like the raised eyebrow. The wrinkles are there. We can't see the details necessarily on the wrinkles unless we look, but that's okay because the shape language, the form, says this is what's going on. Same thing with those hands. They don't look like mittens wrapped around a pole. They look like fingers and thumb. So, now we go to the Z plugin, Decimation Master, and we decimate it to 70,000 polygons, or thereabouts. Okay. And then we have Ralph swinging past yet again. And reordering the polygons and vertexes, writing file to disk, and computing, and it's at 70,045 triangles. And yet, when we look at it, we really can't see a difference. That's the advantage of decimation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to export this you can't see this dialogue, but I'm saving it to my here. That's our first orc figure done for tonight. Now we go ahead and we import a new one. We're going to import the Orc Archer number 2. We are then going to append the skirt, and then we're going to append the props. And we're going to merge him down with the skirt. Oh, wrong way. There we go. He's a bit more ragey. Okay, one thing we're going to do while we can, that mouth gets big on the inside. So big that it's going to cause us a problem with printing with overhangs. So what we're going to do, we're going to kind of bring it in. I'm just using a smooth brush, but what's happening, because it's averaging positions, it's bringing the inside of that mouth forward. Okay. Let me have to let's hide those. Alright, masking inverse visibility hide point. Okay. Oh well, I will get cleared up when we get to our Dynamesh. Okay, subtool, we're going to, not subtool, geometry, we're going to Dynamesh, we're going to subdivide them a couple times. Delete lower, and we're going to Dynamesh at 768. And that's good. Now, let's make the mouse bigger. We're going to smooth out like that little side belly wrinkles. Smooth out where it meets the belly. Make sure we're going to standard. And we're going to kind of bring it forward from where it's got the belly in. Nope, that was too messy. And again, this is going to be a bit smoother done when we start doing in the wrinkles, like we did on the last one. Zoom in and make sure we clear out this. I'm thinking that instead of just straight up heavy wrinkly cloth like the last guy, this guy might have, like one of our sword and shieldsmen orcs, a gambeson. That'll make life a lot easier for both of us, and I can get to doing the others pretty quickly. Oh! Excuse me. Now, I gotta refresh this page. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna smooth out under his boobies. He's got boobies. And I've already decided that after I finish this orc, I'm going to go ahead and call it an evening, because the next orc is going to be, the two spearmen. They're probably going to end up with armor, and that's something I'm going to want to be a bit more awake to take care of. Okay, so I'm going to give him longer sleeves. And deeper or larger trim on the wrists. Mostly so that when it comes time to do the lines and the gambeson, I can go underneath them a bit further. And shrink this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And subtract from there. Frame out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we're going to actually bring this up all the way to here. And we're going to unmask it from behind. It's going to be a high collar. Okay. And I'm going to shrink the mouse quite a bit. Hide that just so that I can undo the mask here. Bring this back. Draw that on, rotate, and now we're going to draw off around the jaw. Frame. And now I'm going to make sure the mouth is big enough. And I'm going to draw along the edge. I'm going to come back in and clear it off the thighs after I've gotten the base drawn. Okay, now let's get it back to a front view. Shrink down the maps. And we're going to go in and undo here around the thigh. Now when I do the spearmen, I'm going to do them on Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and assume I'm going to do them in medium flexible armor. By that I mean like one's going to be chain and one's going to be in scale. If we use these figures for an orc army, they would be the backbone of the army, the basic trooper types. In fact, a classic formation would be to have the sword and shield boys in the front and the spear boys right behind them. Zoom out. That's our trim. And we go back to subtool and extract at a 0.03, smoothing a 0, and extract. Accept. Draw that. Geometry. Dynamesh once. Bang. And divide 1, 2. Yeah, 2 times. Good enough. And we can already see there's one area we need to kind of deal with it. What do you want? What are you wanting, Furball? No, you can't go in my lap because I got my tablet there. No, you can't go in my lap. I have my tablet there. Shoot. Good boy. Okay, now, as I was saying, you should be able to see there's at least one spot here I need to fix. Namely, right here coming off the ear. Because of the way it's done, I should be able to just smooth it. Then I'll do a move selected, or move topological. Oh, I see. Yeah, let's do it this way instead. We're going to drag it in instead of forward, and we're going to kind of imply that what's going to happen is when we eventually fully dynamesh this, that's going to be kind of fused in together. And let's get inflate, just inflate here until it blends. There, that's going to be gone when we actually do our final bits on him. Now, we can go ahead and put in the stripes needed for the gambeson, or we can go ahead and make the boots. Well, I'm kind of in favor of doing the gambeson, so let's get this in there and smooth it. Okay. Oh, that's right. Can't make the same mistake we did before. We got to make a belt. Okay, and bring them around to here. And and extract it. Oh, shnikes. I forgot to remove the masking from the rest of Mr. Happy, so I suddenly had duplicate seams. Okay, let's bring this around here. And now we extract it. I forgot to do, let's see, let me put it to you this way. I forgot to do that. So now let's go ahead and, with our belt selected, go back to and Dynamesh them once and divide them. Now we're going to go ahead and give him a buckle. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw on, this is going to be a big old buckle, so we're just going to draw on that. And this is going to be extracted at 0.03 and extract. Accept, draw, select the belt, draw, go back to here, and we're going to Dynamesh it. Dynamesh. We're also going to take our slash brush and very gently sharpen the top and bottom. That's not quite enough, so we're going to hit number 1 to redo the stroke. Yeah, now it's going to go up here. And again, 1 to redo the stroke. That's pretty good. And then we're going to smooth out the front of it. Now frame out, divide it a couple times to delete lower. And let's go back and select him again. Let's go ahead and give him his bits for the, okay, that's not what we need. We need slightly larger and deeper, because we want to go kind of deep with these. Not deep enough. Needs to be deep enough that it's going to be obvious when we go to print that these are quilting lines. Okay. Now we're going to draw around both arms. You can't see this because it's underneath the darn camera. Yeah, there we go. This is the seam above the arm, where the sleeves sew on. The same thing here. Okay, now we're going to draw down the center of the chest. We're also going to have to turn off the belt and buckle, just to make sure that we're going proper. Propify. Okay. No furball. You cannot come down into my lap, you little fuzz butt. Yeah, go ahead, go into the window. Good boy. Now, I'm not sure which is better. There's a, see what it is, what I'm talking about here is some versions of the stylus for a Wacom, this thing, the backside is an eraser, so to speak. But in other versions, like my current one, it's not. And on the one hand, while it's, you know, really nice having that eraser for when you totally screw up, you also don't get to see where the mouse is when you let's go ahead and you don't get to see the mouse is if you pick up the wrong end of the stylus and put it to the tablet. Okay, now we're going to draw down the length of the arm. So let's turn off that. So we're going to just draw down the arms. Oh. I need to make certain that because this curve is so sharp on the arm that I've got it directly under the center for each one I draw. Okay. Now, that went too far. And I'm sure every sci-fi fan in here knows already Harlan Ellison has passed away. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inflate tool, I'm going to make it that big, and I'm going to gently bring it across each of these seams. It'll help just lower the intensity so I don't have to be quite as gentle. It'll help close up all of these wedges while keeping the detail intact, and at the same time it'll put a bulge on either side of the seam to restore some of the thickness lost by these seams. Especially in the arms, which were thin to begin with. Now this kind of seam is not quite as well done with a dry brush, but it's great with a wash. You give it a really thin wash and the only place the paint will stick is in these grooves. And now, last one is the seam of the sleeves. Okay, now when we turn on the seam, yeah, there we go. He's wearing a gambeson, very clearly. Get some soda again. Now the thing is, he's wearing a heavier gambeson. Not him. It was him. Than our sword and shieldman. He was wearing a bit of a light gambeson, but he also had a shoulder piece and a belly piece. So overall, he's got more armor. Is that a cattail? Yes, it is. Now, what I'm going to do for his boots... there goes the cattail back that way. With the boots, I'm going to actually go a different route. They're not going to be hobnailed. They're just going to be basic boots. So I'm going to draw on the upper edges. In fact, let's go ahead and give him really huge feet by causing the entire boot to actually be made. And beep. Okay. Now, we go ahead and we extract 3. Except, now the thing is, we now need to take and select here. We're then going to invert the mask and then blur it quite a lot. We're then going to deformation, offset by Y. There. Frame. Big old. We're now going to Dynamesh it and divide it twice. Delete lower. I'll be honest, clothing wise we're pretty much done here, but we still have to do facial details, hand details. I'm going to do the hand details first, and let's deselect everything and shrink the mouse to the size of the fingers. Okay, and now knuckle here. Need to increase the intensity just a little. Knuckle here, knuckle here, knuckle here, and then shape of tendons. Smooth the bottoms of them. Yay. And a little bit of bottom edge of the knuckles. And then here, 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 here. Here, 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 here. Now, we flatten them out to make them fingers and not a mitten. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and smooth those out a little. Now, mesh over here and here. Okay, we are also going to go ahead and inflate the inside to make it a little bit easier to print in the future. Close that off. And inflate that. Okay. And that's our backhand. Well, except for digging in the fingers to double check their size. Okay. Okay, and that's the fingers of that hand. And now we go back to inflate and do the fingers of the other hand. Zoom in. Now, like I said, we want to go, one of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure we inflate the inside of the thumb, because when we did the posing, it had a slightly incorrect proportion. And then a little bit of smoothing to smooth it out. It lost some depth from the folding, from the rigging. Okay, now add on the knuckles. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and smooth the backs of them. All wrinkles, you smooth out the back end of them. Now, here, 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 and then we smooth them kind of flat. Yeah, apparently there's a homeowners association recently here in Memphis that just added a penalty for, or a bonus rather, for anyone who reports people who don't clean up after their dogs. Yeah, it's $50 off your rent if you do it. How's that for weird? Well, it's understandable. As someone who doesn't own a dog, but has in the past, yes, I know how it can be difficult to keep track of where your dog is pooping, but you still need to do it. Oop. Okay, and now let's add a little detail. Let's add in our fingers. Oh, that's moved. That's not slash. There's slash. Now, I see one thing we're going to have to do. Let's select this orc bow. We're going to have to move it because it's not in the right spot. So now it's offset X and then offset Y. That's good enough. Okay. Yeah, the bow's in the right spot now. Frame. Okay. Now we need to go back to him. Make sure there's no selected polygons. And once again, we need to draw around his eyes to make sure that they don't blend in when it comes time. Now, to exaggerate his expression, we're going to add in some brow wrinkles. And those are a little bit too strong. Let's reduce the intensity and reduce the size. Now, okay, frame it out. And I think that one's about done. That one's a lot quicker because I didn't have anywhere near as many wrinkles. So, I can put this up because this will not be needed for the rest of the orky. And it is 10:15 already. Alright, so let's go to the Archer props and let's make sure that we go and subdivide them a couple times. Okay. Now, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and merge him down with everything. Frame. But now we have to load in one more thing. We have to load in the base. And this base needs to get first of all, mesh smoothed a couple times, or subdivided as they say. Lower. Now, deformation, it needs to be offset. Okay, and now we need to offset it by the X. Offset it by the Z. And that was something getting knocked over by my cat. Alright. Now we frame. And we have our orky.
I saw an arrow into the air. And where it landed, I do not care. Probably hit a skinny humie or something.
And we're going to go ahead and merge down. And now we have our figure. We go to geometry and Dynamesh it at 768 again. $1.768 million polygons. Far too many for most slicers to handle. So once again we go to this and turn it to 70,000 polygons. And as it's going, it's processing the polygons. I left the ears as they were because some orcs do have more animalistic ears and less elven. He has more brow detail and a little bit more around the mouth detail. So. And now it's reordering the vertexes. And then it's writing the file to disk, then it's going to calculate, and it's at 70,047 polygons. And again, at this size, or at print size, you can't see a difference. You have to zoom in to really see the difference. So we're going to go ahead and export this one. Export into our broadcast miniatures. Orc Archer 02 figure. Okay. And that is our two orky archers. Next up on Sunday, the spearmen. So now, that was it for tonight. For those of you who may have actually still stuck around despite the incredible boring of everything, aspect of everything else. Yeah, so what do you think? That was me sculpting and dealing with a cat flying across. So what do you think? Now you can hear the tinkle tinkle from a certain fur ball over here in the windowsill. Well, normally I don't have the raw geometry done. The raw geometry actually doesn't take me very long. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and open up the tools I use to make the raw geometry just to show you what I'm talking about. This means I'm coming back over here, but I'm going to be turning off the ZBrush window. Okay? And what's coming up is Daz Studio. You see, what I did was I made the basic geometry for a male and female figure with the proportions of a miniature instead of realistic proportions. That means larger hands and feet, larger head, broader torso. To be exact, this is my base geometry. He's fully articulated. You know, you can sit there, bend, pose all the various bits and pieces. Even the eyebrows and you can even open and close the mouth. I mean, blah, blah, blah. But more than that, because of the way that handles blend shapes, it also allows you to, like, this is where all the bones are. I turn him into a deep one, and the bones move with him. So I can still pose him properly. I turn him into a dragonborn. You know? I can turn him into undead, a dwarf, an elf, which you'll notice my elves are taller and thinner than humans. That's the way they are in the game I wrote. That's the way I prefer them, and that's the way they are pretty much everywhere except D&D. Shrink them down to a gnome, goblin, halfling. Turn him into a hobgoblin. Shrink him down to a kobold. Make him really big into an ogre. Not quite so big into an orc, which I was using just now tonight. Make him somewhat bigger and turn him into an orc boss. And then I've got not one, but two lizardmen types and a troll. A kind of a cross between a classic D&D troll and the troll in Warhammer, but still. And even with the basic human, I can shrink him down to the scale for an 8mm figure, or even just something as simple as making him more muscular for your more barbarian figures or your heavy-duty fighters. I also have, now you look right down below me, this huge list of all these bits and pieces. Those are weapons and props and things like that. Got a whole bunch of them. Got some tech devices, got some sci-fi devices, some magic spells that will load, for example, in either hand. Bits of clothing, including various helmets, like, you know, you want more of your classic knight's helmet on the figure. You know, that sort of thing. And, yeah. Well, I'll say this. The program I'm showing here is Daz Studio. Daz Studio is free. It does not come with what I was just showing off, because that's geometry that I created. If I had not created that geometry myself, I could not give away the figures that I make with it. So, I've been working with Daz Studio since it came out, literally. I've been doing 3D graphics for a living since 2001. So, yeah, I've had experience preparing it and doing the basics on rigging and setting up those what are called blend shapes. Now, every time it changed to a completely different proportions, the bones, the points at which the joints moved with it. That's something that's kind of unique to Daz Studio. It's a lot easier than it is in 3D Studio Max or Maya to load in a blend shape that also moves the bones. That's just controlled by a single dial in the UI. So by doing this, for example, I created a deep one for someone on one of these broadcasts early on, like early April. If I ever want to make another deep one miniature with a totally different pose, for example, if I want to make a deep one in a tuxedo holding a serving tray and the towel over his arm, I can do it. Because I now have the deep one permanently loaded as a figure type on that miniature. There's other props I can load in, like for the Dragonborn, there's different horns and horns up here and ear crests and things like that I could load in. For the orcs, those tusks are separate. I can load them in. And I can set the orc to 40 or 50% and he looks like a half orc. And it's got separate tusks for them. So yeah, that's basically what I do when I make these miniatures. I've already done the hard stuff, creating the geometry itself, and rigged it to be able to pose so I can pose it. And why reinvent the wheel? Why completely redo all of the... Yes. Ralph. Okay, I don't have it anymore. You can hop down. Yes. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, you see what I'm saying. Yeah, and it also helps me keep my style. So that way I have a style that is definitely mine. And now that he's gotten down to my lap, she's probably starting to get a little frustrated. Yes, I have cats. Yes, they're all sweetie kits. And you see, look at this. Sniffles. Good girl. And anyway, this way the orcs that I made tonight look like they're the same species of orc that I made a month ago. And that I will make on Sunday night and 5, 6, 12 months from now. Anyway. Yeah, been there, done that, but this is a tower, not a laptop, which is why... Yeah. Anyway. I'm going to be going ahead and saying goodbye. I'm going to watch my hand over here, and when I see it come... Because there's about a 10 or 15 second lag on... Twitch, and just in case I've gone beyond that because of slowdowns from modeling, yeah, I'm going to keep my hand up here and I'm going to count down, the usual, and when I see my finger gets to 1, I'm going to stop the broadcast. So that would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lag. Good night.